She laughed when her ex-husband packed up and moved into a broken-down mansion. But what she didn't know was that he was sitting on a $150 million secret. Imagine watching the person you once loved turn their back on you, convinced you're nothing without them. That's what happened to Liam the day he signed the divorce papers. His ex-wife, Sophia, couldn't wipe the smirk off her face as he packed his bags, ready to leave. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this. To her, this was the end of Liam's comfortable life. To him, it was just the beginning. The story begins in a courthouse that smelled of old wood and stale coffee. Liam sat quietly, his hands folded, his jaw steady. He didn't beg or shout. He simply let the judge read the terms, nodded, and signed. Sophia, on the other hand, practically glowed. She had the house, the new car, the vacation property. Liam walked away with his old truck and a mansion she loved to mock. The place was his family estate, a sprawling stone mansion sitting on land now covered in weeds. To Sophia, it wasn't a home. It was a punchline. She called it a ruined castle, bragging to friends that Liam would be living like a recluse in a haunted shell. When they walked out of the courthouse, Sophia whispered just loud enough for him to hear, "So, you're really going back to that dump? I'd almost feel sorry for you." Liam didn't take the bait. He simply met her eyes and said, "Don't worry about me, Sophia. I'll be just fine." She laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. For her, it was the final word. For Liam, it was just noise. As he drove away, he felt no anger, just a calm certainty. What Sophia didn't know was that Liam held the keys to an inheritance his late uncle had left him, quietly tied up in trusts worth more than she could ever imagine. But Liam wasn't about to rub it in her face. He headed toward the mansion with a quiet determination, eager to step inside the ruins that Sophia thought symbolized his failure. He knew her laughter wouldn't last forever. The drive felt heavier than usual, his truck rattling along the highway. When he turned onto the cracked driveway, the house came into view like an old photograph. The once white stone walls were stained, windows were broken, and ivy crept up the sides. He parked, stepped out, and just stood there for a moment, staring. He remembered summers spent running through its halls. Still, he didn't sigh. Instead, he muttered, "All right, let's get to work." He slid the heavy key into the lock, and the door creaked open, releasing a rush of stale air. Dust floated in the sunlight. Inside, the grand foyer stretched before him, its marble floors dulled by dirt. The silence was heavy, but it steadied him. That evening, after unloading, he sat in a folding chair in the center of the foyer with a thermos of coffee, just looking around. The house was silent, but he saw potential in every cracked tile and broken window. The first night wasn't easy. He unrolled a sleeping bag on the floor of the library, the firelight dancing across the dusty shelves. Sophia's mocking words still rang in his ears. "She thinks I'm finished," he whispered to himself. "She has no idea." A week later, Liam drove into town to meet with a financial advisor his uncle had trusted for years. The office was modest, nothing to draw attention. "Mr. Ellison," the advisor said, "I wasn't sure when you'd come in." He pulled out a thick folder. Inside were documents, trust accounts, property deeds. The advisor tapped one page. Your uncle left you controlling interest in several commercial properties. The trust holds about $150 million in assets. It's all yours, and all off the radar. Liam studied the paper before closing the folder. He just nodded. Good. That's how I want to keep it. Sophia never wasted time. The next weekend, she was at a restaurant with friends. "You should have seen him," she said, leaning across the table. "He signed those papers like it was nothing. He's actually moving into that old rotting mansion." Her friends gasped. "That place with the roof falling in?" one asked. "Exactly," Sophia said with a smirk. "I almost felt bad for him. Almost." For her, Liam was a story she could tell at brunch, a story where she was the winner. Meanwhile, Liam was busy working. The first week was exhausting. He woke before sunrise, scraping paint, pulling weeds, hauling broken furniture. His back ached and his hands were blistered, but there was a strange satisfaction in it. He spoke to the house as he worked, as if the walls could hear him. One evening, a neighbor stopped by, an older man named Howard. "You must be Ellison's boy," he said. "Used to help your uncle with repairs. Most folks figured this place would just rot away." Liam shrugged. "Most folks weren't raised in it." Howard tipped his cap. "Well, if you need an extra pair of hands, I've still got some tools." While Liam was slowly breathing life back into the house, Sophia's mockery only grew louder at parties. "I swear, one good storm and the whole roof will come crashing down on his head," she'd say, earning roars of laughter. She thought he was drowning, but the truth was, he was finally learning how to swim on his own. Talk in the small town inevitably reached Sophia. A friend mentioned it at a dinner party. "Somebody told me Liam's had crews out there almost every week." Sophia rolled her eyes. "Please, he probably patched a hole with duct tape." But the words planted a seed of doubt. A week later, Sophia drove to the mansion, telling herself it was just curiosity. When she saw it, her jaw tightened. The house stood tall again. Fresh shingles lined the roof, the windows gleamed, and the grass was neatly trimmed. Liam was outside near the porch. He looked up as her car approached, his face calm. "Well," she said, forcing a laugh, "looks like you've been busy." He leaned against the railing. "Busy enough?" She stepped out of the car. "So, what's the deal? You win the lottery?" Liam chuckled softly. "You really think money is something I needed from you? Not everything I had was on paper in that courtroom." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time, her confidence wavered. The breaking point came when she ran into an acquaintance at a cafe. "I heard Liam has more money than people think," he said. "My cousin works at a bank. Said he came in with documents tied to some trust. Big numbers." That night, Sophia sat alone, remembering every mocking comment. The possibility that she had walked away from someone who wasn't ruined, but quietly thriving, cut deeper than she cared to admit. She appeared at the mansion one last time. "I heard things," she began. "People are saying you came into money." Liam paused, setting down his tools. He looked at her for a long moment. "Why does it matter to you, Sophia?" She fidgeted with her keys. I thought you were finished. I thought you had nothing." Liam nodded slowly. "And you laughed at me for it. You shouldn't measure people by what they lose. You should measure them by what they do with what they still have. You saw failure. I saw opportunity." He walked past her toward the house, adding over his shoulder, Sometimes losing what you think you need is the only way to find out what you're really capable of. The heavy door closed, its sound echoing in the silence.